So today's Cardinal lesson is kind of unique. So we have all kinds of videos about getting money into a Roth IRA, paying the taxes, which is no fun. And now we got this tax-free account that's going to grow tax-free, and we can pull money in later retirement tax-free out, or we can just let it accumulate for years tax-free and then leave it all to the next generation, and they won't have to pay any taxes on it. So it's a wonderful thing. And we talk about ways to get money and how much to get in there and what the taxes is, smartest way to do it. That's not what this video is about. Now we're going to talk about when you get money out of there. And I could make this real simple and say it's tax-free, but depending on when you do it and what the character of it is, there still are some possibilities. You're going to need to be smart about this. Let's just put it that way. I want to bring Tom on to just talk about why we're doing this video on getting money out of a Roth IRA.
I mean, the why of this video is like Hans had mentioned, is we have lots of videos, and we're talking about in many of our stuff of converting money, contributing money, getting money into the Roth. We don't talk often about how to get it out. And there are some real specific rules depending on your age, depending on timing and stuff, that if you get it wrong, this whole great benefit of tax free, you might miss. And so, what we want to do today is just really walk through sort of the rules, give you a taste of them. Don't try this on your own. If you have questions, call us, because again, it can get somewhat confusing, and different money is handled differently. And so we'll get to that in a second. But I do want to bring up the show notes. You can find these at the link below on our video. They're also on our website under the Learning Center. You have the picture of the board. Take it out, take notes on it. You can see it a little bit better. The next page in here, this is pretty busy, so I don't want to spend a lot of time here. This really just walks through an example of contributions, conversions, the earnings, and if you sit down and study it long enough, you make sense of it. But it's kind of busy. But really, this article does a pretty good job of simplifying it, talking you through what those rules are, when you can access money, and that's really what we're going to do on the video today.
Okay, so distribution ordering rules. And what it means is, how is the IRS going to look at your distribution that you're now getting money out of the Roth IRA? How are they going to look at this? And we're planning on tax-free. That's how they're going to look at it. But you still have to do an accounting of it. And we want you to understand what you're doing. And you don't have to memorize all this stuff. That's what we're here for, is we do have it memorized and we know how to do it, and we can look it up and make sure you don't make a mistake with this. So all your Roth IRAs, so a lot of people have a few Roth accounts. They have the one that they started on their own, and then they contributed to it for a few years, and then it's grown some, and then they have the one that they converted from their traditional 401k that they rolled over into a traditional IRA, and then they took pieces of that and turned it into a Roth. So we have a lot of clients that have 2 or 3 or 4 Roth IRAs, and the IRS is going to look at all your Roth IRAs as one big account for distribution purposes. Okay. Now, it's not going to include if you have a Roth 401k. A lot of folks don't even know about these, but within a lot of 401ks, you can make contributions to the Roth side of that. That doesn't count. That's a Roth 401k. It's not a Roth IRA. So back on the IRAs, topic of the video is getting money out. The IRS is going to look at all your Roth IRAs as one big account. And we're also need to define one other point here about this 5-year forever clock. Many folks that know a little bit, they kind of simplify this. They say you got to leave it in the Roth for 5 years before you take anything out. If you take anything out, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. And that's just not true. I mean, you could pay taxes on it if you take it out before 5 years. We're going to get into that. But the 5-year forever clock, the 5 years starts when you opened your first Roth IRA. If you did that back at 50 and you're now 65, 5-year forever clock even if it was just $100, that's the start date of the 5-year clock. Okay. If you don't have any Roth IRAs and you're going to start, and we're going to do one conversion this year, then your 5-year forever clock is going to be right now. What you're going to learn later is if you're over 59 and a half, it really doesn't matter. And then what we're going to talk here is the Roth IRA distribution ordering rules. So this stuff on the surface doesn't really sound all that interesting, but where it becomes interesting, money in a Roth, I mean, it's really cool to look forward into your retirement. You know, it's cool for me to look forward in later retirement that I can draw out of an account and add it to my Social Security and pay no taxes on this money that I drew out of this Roth account. Or I just leave it there for the whole of my life. It goes on to my kids, and then they're going to inherit an IRA tax-free. That's what gets this whole subject interesting. So I want to bring Tom back on, and we want to walk through these three situations or the three steps of characterization of money coming out of a Roth.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. From the IRS standpoint, is they're going to view your IRAs as all grouped together, even if you have 20 accounts. I don't recommend that, but if you did, from the IRS standpoint, they look at it all the same way. And so that makes it simple, right? Where you're not having to keep track of all these different accounts and the differences there. I do want to point out that that is just IRAs. They're going to treat 401ks separately. So some people, and we get this a lot, it's like, oh, I've been putting money in my Roth 401k for years now. I've met this 5-year rule clock. And I say, well, have you ever opened up a Roth IRA? Well, no. That 5-year clock has not started for the Roth IRAs. And so even if you are contributing money to the 401k, that does not start that lifetime 5-year clock that we're talking about here. And so, that could speak to maybe just opening a Roth IRA up, maybe just put $100 in, just something to get that 5-year clock started would be wise. But I think, once we sort of establish that, it's important to know that the first money coming out when you make a distribution are the contributions. And so this is money that was contributed directly into a Roth IRA, not a Roth 401k. I guess maybe a rollover would count. But essentially, this is money going in as a contribution, not on a conversion. But that's the first dollars coming out are the contributions. Then it's conversions. This is where you take traditional IRA money, convert it to a Roth IRA. That money is second. And then finally, the earnings is the last money coming out. So I think it's helpful to know that order of things. Again, in the show notes, that one example, it walks through all that. I don't want to bring it back up because I'm going to lose you guys. But if you really want to study it, it shows you the different ones and walks you through how to do that. But one thing that's kind of cool is the contributions. So this is money you've put into the Roth IRA. You never have to pay tax or penalty if you draw that money out. So back when I was 21, I just started here. I opened up a Roth IRA. I put, I don't know, $5,000 in that year, whatever the number was. And that $5,000 I was able to access at any point, penalty free, tax free. The earnings are different, but the contributions, I could always take that money back out, regardless of age, regardless of when. And so that's something to keep sort of track of. And it's helpful that that's the first dollars coming out. So the first money I pull it out of that Roth would be tax free and penalty free.
And you don't want to pull it out of there because the earnings with no taxes or tax-free earnings are one of the major reasons you're putting it in here. Like I didn't get my Roth till I was, in my 50s. I didn't start a Roth, but all the money that I've made inside of that Roth from I don't know what age in my 50s to now is tax-free. Not taxed later, but tax-free. And so I want to leave that there, but I can go back and get that contribution or the conversion anytime I want. And it really was a conversion. And I can actually get the earnings. So I want to leave it all there to have it grow tax-free. And if you're a younger person like Tom and you start one of these things, you don't want to go robbing your initial contribution. But we're just telling you, if you ended up doing that or had to do it, you're not going to pay any tax up to the amount of the contribution. And if it's after 5 years, then you know, or and you have to be 59 and a half. So if Tom went in and drew out his earnings, he would pay taxes
on the earnings, correct. And so the earnings, you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, to Hans's point, you really don't want to touch any of it if you can avoid it. But if you have to go get it, try to keep it to the contribution amount, because then you don't have to worry about any taxes or penalties. Sort of the next one on the board is the conversions. And so this is where you've taken money from a traditional IRA and you've converted it to a Roth. And so you didn't contribute it in that single year. This gets often confused, and we have some other videos that talk about this. But on the conversion standpoint, there are no limits, annual limits on how much you can convert. So on a contribution, you're limited to how much you could contribute each year based off the year you're in and your age and stuff. There's a chart we have in some other shows. The conversion, you can convert as much as you want. There is no income limits. And so this is really the way how most people have gotten money in the Roth, is by the Roth conversion. And this has a different sort of set of rules. And so this one, if you are under 59 and a half, most of our clients are over that age, so we don't talk about this often. But if you are under 59 and a half, you do have to keep track of each individual conversion. So if I converted, say, $10,000 3 years ago, $10,000 2 years ago, $10,000 last year, I have to keep track of each of those conversions. And each one of those has their own 5-year clock before I could pull out those converted dollars penalty free and tax free. And so that's, if you're under 59 and a half, it can get a little bit confusing. I hear this a lot from clients where they've read this somewhere. They're over 59 and a half. They say, well, if I convert money, I have to keep track of each one I'm doing. If you're over 59 and a half, you do not need to keep track of each one. It doesn't matter. Because if you look on the board, that or is underlined. That or is very important for conversions. If you were over 59 and a half, you don't have to keep track of when those conversions happened. But you still have to keep track of when the first Roth IRA was open, because that's that lifetime 5-year clock. And so I recognize that's a little confusing. Call us if you have questions. But conversions, that's how conversions are going to be handled separately. And then the earnings is really the last money coming out. This 5-year clock, because there's really 2 5-year clocks that we're talking about here, but this 5-year clock is that lifetime clock. This is where they look at when your first Roth IRA was ever opened and money got into it. That's when that clock started. Once you meet the 5 years on that one, your first IRA, you've met it for all Roth IRAs. And now you still have to be over 59 and a half. But now if you have had a Roth open for at least 5 years at some point, and you're over 59 and a half, you don't need to worry about any of these rules. You're good. You could convert it, pull it out the next day. Doesn't matter. But for our clients now that are, say they're 65, they're retiring, they have never put money in a Roth, and they do that first Roth conversion, the converted amount, they could always access, without any risk of anything. But if that lifetime 5-year clock rule hadn't been met, then the earnings could still be taxed. So again, there's a lot of nuances here, a lot of moving parts, different 5-year clocks going on. So if you have questions, call us. But again, this is important to get these right, because the whole joy of the Roth account is all that growth tax free, and we don't want you to miss out on that by making some silly mistakes.
Yeah. So within the scope of financial planning, we use Roth IRAs and Roth conversions frequently to have a tax-free account later on in retirement, or to hand a hunk of money over to our heirs that they're not going to pay tax on. So this is a frequent subject, and most people that do this plan to leave the money there a long time and then access it either themselves or way down the road, pass it on to the next generation. So this really isn't a day-to-day issue, but we stay up on it because we want to make sure that you don't pay any taxes on money that's coming out of a Roth as the tax-free. So within the scope of financial planning, I mean, obviously we're talking about your IRA money and 401k money. And anytime we're doing that, we're talking about taxes. And then estate planning is where you're handing tax-free money to the next generation. income is where you might possibly use this to mix withdrawals from your Roth and your Social Security check, because if you'll remember, is that Social Security is taxed to the extent of your other income or your provisional income. And if that's a good bit of that or all of it's coming out of a Roth, you're going to pay little or no tax on your Social Security. So, we're hitting 5 boxes here of the 7 boxes in our financial planning. So I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.